The entire emergency room went silent when they saw her walk in. A 9-year-old girl, wearing a dress 2 sizes too big, clutching a worn envelope in both hands. Her shoes were scuffed, her hair pulled back in a crooked ponytail, and her eyes, those eyes carried a weight no child should ever know. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. She approached the front desk, stood on her tiptoes, and whispered something that made the nurse's eyes fill with tears. "This is for the biker man who got hurt. It's all I have. Please make sure he gets it." Inside that envelope was $47, crumpled ones, fives, a few quarters taped to a piece of notebook paper. Her birthday money. Every single dollar she'd saved for an entire year. Money she'd been planning to use for a new winter coat because hers had holes in both sleeves. And the man she was giving it to? A complete stranger lying unconscious 3 floors above her. A man she'd never met, never spoken to. A man who didn't even know she existed. But what this little girl didn't know, what she couldn't possibly have known, was that the stranger she was trying to save belonged to the most loyal, most protective brotherhood in the entire state. The Iron Phantom Motorcycle Club. Men who live by a code older than any law. Loyalty. Honor. Debts paid in full. And when the Iron Phantoms found out what this forgotten little girl had done, they made a decision that would change her life forever and bring an entire city to its knees in tears. 72 hours later, something happened that made national news. News helicopters circled overhead. Every major network picked up the story. Social media exploded. But the real story, the one that'll make you believe in humanity again, the one that proves kindness is never wasted, that story starts on a cold, rainy November afternoon when a 9-year-old Orphan decided that someone else's life mattered more than her own comfort. Before we continue, I need to know where you're watching from. Drop your city or country in the comments. Let's see how far this story travels. And if you believe that forgotten children deserve to be seen, that the invisible among us matter, hit that subscribe button right now. Because what you're about to witness will remind you why compassion is the most powerful force on earth. This is Emma Grace Sullivan. But if you'd walked through the streets of Riverside, Tennessee, population 18,000, and asked about her, most people would give you a blank stare. Emma Grace, who? They'd never heard the name, never seen her face. Because Emma was the kind of child who moved through the world like a whisperer, quiet, careful, trying hard not to take up too much space. She was 9 years old, with sandy blonde hair that never quite stayed in place, freckles scattered across her nose like constellations, and eyes the pale, color of storm clouds, gray, serious, far too old for her age. Emma had been living at Mercy Hills Children's Home for 3 years. Room 14, second floor. The bed by the window. She kept her few belongings folded neatly in a plastic bin under her bed. 2 pairs of jeans, 3 shirts, 1 winter coat with holes in both sleeves, a worn copy of Charlotte's Web that her grandmother had read to her 100 times, and a small wooden box that held the only photos she had left of her family. Before Mercy Hills, Emma had lived with her grandmother in a tiny apartment above Sullivan's hardware store on Main Street. Her grandmother, Dorothy Sullivan, had been a seamstress, her fingers bent with arthritis, but still nimble enough to mend clothes for half the town. They didn't have much. The apartment was drafty in winter, hot in summer, and the furniture was older than Emma. But it was home. Dorothy would make pancakes every Sunday morning, always shaped like animals: a bear, a rabbit once, a lopsided elephant that made Emma laugh so hard she snorted milk through her nose. At night, her grandmother would sit on the edge of Emma's bed, reading Charlotte's Web in a soft, steady voice until Emma's eyes grew heavy. "You've got a good heart, Emma Grace," her grandmother would whisper, smoothing back her hair. "Never let the world take that from you. Kindness is the only thing that truly matters." Emma's parents had died when she was 4, a house fire that started in the middle of the night. Faulty wiring, the fire marshal had said. Emma didn't remember much about them, just fragments. Her mother's laugh, her father lifting her onto his shoulders, the smell of her mother's perfume. Her grandmother had saved her that night, pulling her from the burning house, coughing and crying, while flames consumed everything they owned. From that night forward, it had been just the two of them, Dorothy and Emma, against the world. Then, 2 weeks after Emma's 6th birthday, Dorothy suffered a massive stroke while hemming a wedding dress at her sewing machine. The neighbor found her hours later, slumped over, the needle still in her hand. She was gone before the ambulance arrived. Emma had been at school. When the principal pulled her out of class, when the social worker sat her down and explained in that too gentle voice that her grandmother wasn't coming back, something inside Emma shut down. She didn't cry, didn't scream. She just nodded, her small hands folded in her lap, and asked quietly, "Where will I go?" There was no one else. No aunts, no uncles, no cousins willing to take in a grieving 6-year-old. Dorothy's only living relative was a half-brother in Oregon who hadn't spoken to her in 20 years. When the social worker called him, he said, "I can't take care of a kid. I don't even know her." So Emma entered the system. Mercy Hills Children's Home became her new address. It wasn't a terrible place. The staff tried their best with limited resources. There were 15 kids total, ranging from age 5 to 17. The building itself was an old converted church, with high ceilings, creaky floors, and radiators that clanged in the night. The rooms were clean but institutional: white walls, metal bed frames, threadbare blankets. Emma kept to herself. While the other kids played in the common room, she'd sit by the window with her book, reading the same pages over and over because the words felt like her grandmother's voice. She'd trace her finger over the illustrations, whispering the lines she'd memorized. "You have been my friend." That in itself is a tremendous thing. The staff at Mercy Hills noticed her, of course. Quiet, obedient Emma who never caused trouble, never asked for anything, never complained. Mrs. Rivera, the home's director, would sometimes find Emma in the kitchen after everyone else had gone to bed, washing dishes that weren't hers to wash, folding laundry, sweeping floors. "Emma, sweetie, you don't have to do that," Mrs. Rivera would say gently. "I know," Emma would reply, her voice soft. "But I want to help." What Mrs. Rivera didn't understand, what none of them understood, was that helping made Emma feel less invisible. If she was useful, if she contributed, maybe she mattered. Maybe she had a purpose. At school, Emma was the kid who sat in the back row, who never raised her hand even when she knew the answer, who ate lunch alone with a book propped open in front of her. Teachers liked her because she never disrupted class, but they rarely remembered her name. On parent-teacher night, when other kids' parents came to ask about grades and progress, Emma's seat remained empty. Mrs. Rivera tried to attend when she could, but with 15 kids and a skeleton staff, there were never enough hours in the day. Emma didn't make friends easily. The other kids at school had birthday parties, sleepovers, playdates, things that required a parent to organize. Emma had learned early not to expect invitations. When classmates asked, "What are you doing this weekend?" she'd shrug and say, "Nothing much," because the truth, "I'll be at the children's home reading the same book I've read 50 times," felt too heavy to share. But Emma wasn't bitter. Her grandmother had taught her better than that. Every night before bed, Emma would open the small wooden box under her bed and look at the 3 photographs inside. One of her parents on their wedding day, one of her grandmother smiling in her sewing chair, and one of Emma as a toddler, sitting on her father's shoulders, both of them laughing. She'd whisper the same thing every time. "I'm trying to be good, Grandma. I'm trying to be kind like you taught me." And she was. When a new kid arrived at Mercy Hills, scared and crying, Emma would sit beside them and read to them until they fell asleep. When Mrs. Rivera looked exhausted, Emma would quietly make her a cup of tea and leave it on her desk. When the older kids picked on the cup, younger ones, Emma would step in, not with anger, but with a calm, steady voice. "That's not nice. We're supposed to take care of each other." The other kids thought she was strange, too serious, too quiet. But Emma didn't mind. Her grandmother had told her once, "The world has enough loud people, Emma Grace. It needs more quiet ones who actually listen." So Emma listened. She noticed things. She saw the sadness in Mrs. Rivera's eyes when funding got cut again. She saw when the cook, Mr. Barnett, limped because his knee was acting up. She saw when little Tommy, age 5, cried himself to sleep because he missed his mother. And on her 9th birthday, November 12th, Emma made a decision. Mrs. Rivera had organized a small party in the common room. Nothing fancy. A grocery store cake, dollar store decorations, the other kids singing off-key. Emma blew out the candles and made a wish she didn't say out loud. I wish I could help someone who really needs it. Afterward, the kids gave her cards they'd made from construction paper. Mrs. Rivera handed her an envelope. The state provides a small birthday stipend for each child. Mrs. Rivera explained. It's not much, but it's yours to spend however you like. Inside was $47. $47. To most kids, it would have seemed like pocket change. But to Emma, who'd never had money of her own, it felt like a fortune. That night, lying in bed, Emma stared at the envelope. She thought about what she could buy. A new coat, the winter was coming, and hers had holes in the sleeves. New shoes, hers were too small and pinched her toes. Maybe some books or art supplies. But then she remembered her grandmother's voice. Kindness is the only thing that truly matters. Emma folded the envelope carefully and tucked it into her wooden box. She didn't know what she'd use it for yet, but somewhere deep inside, she knew it wasn't meant for her. She just had to wait for the right moment. That moment came 3 days later, on a cold, rainy November afternoon, when a man's life hung in the balance and a little girl decided that being kind was worth more than being warm. If you've ever felt invisible, if you've ever been the kid no one noticed, hit that subscribe button right now. Because Emma's story is about to prove that the smallest act of kindness can create the biggest miracles. His road name was Ghost. Real name, Marcus Ghost Dalton, 47 years old. Vice President of the Iron Phantom Motorcycle Club, Tennessee Charter. 23 years in the Brotherhood. A man whose presence commanded respect without him ever having to ask for it. Ghost wasn't the biggest man in the club. That title belonged to a 6'5" enforcer they called Mountain, but he was the most respected. Quiet, thoughtful. The kind of man who measured his words carefully and only spoke when he had something worth saying. In the Iron Phantoms, respect wasn't earned through intimidation or violence. It was earned through loyalty, through living by the code, through standing up for those who couldn't stand up for themselves. The Iron Phantoms weren't outlaws. They were working-class men, veterans, mechanics, construction workers, truckers who'd found brotherhood on the open road. Men who understood what it meant to have each other's backs, no questions asked. Their vests bore the club's patch. A silver Phantom rider on a black Harley, wings spread wide, with the words "Loyalty above all" stitched beneath. To outsiders, the leather, the patches, the roar of engines might have looked like rebellion. But to the men who wore those colors, it was sacred. A promise. In the Iron Phantoms, you didn't have to explain your past, only your word. If you gave it, you kept it. If you fell, the brothers lifted you back up. Ghost had earned his road name 20 years ago during a night ride through the Smoky Mountains. Fog had rolled in thick as cotton, visibility near zero, but Ghost had led the pack through every twist and turn without hesitation, as if he could see through the mist itself. Since then, the name had stuck, but Ghost wasn't just a rider. He was a father. His daughter, Lily, had just turned 16. Bright, fierce, and far too much like her old man for her own good. After Ghost's wife had passed away from cancer 5 years ago, it had been just the two of them, father and daughter against the world. Lily had inherited her mother's smile and her father's stubborn heart. She was the reason Ghost still believed in goodness. Every Sunday morning, Ghost and Lily would ride together, her on a smaller bike he'd rebuilt for her, him on his Harley. They didn't need to talk much. The bond was in the motion, in the way she'd glance over and grin beneath her helmet, in the way he'd nod back, pride swelling in his chest. The Iron Phantoms knew Ghost as unshakable, a man who'd walk through fire literally and figuratively and come out stronger. But even the strongest men can be brought low by a single moment of bad luck. It happened on a Tuesday afternoon. Ghost had been riding solo down Highway 52, heading back from a parts run in Nashville. The rain had started suddenly, turning the asphalt slick and treacherous. He'd slowed down, taking the curves carefully, when a pickup truck coming the opposite direction hydroplaned. The driver overcorrected. The truck swerved into Ghost's lane. There was no time to react. The impact was brutal. Ghost's Harley flipped, sending him skidding across the wet pavement. His helmet cracked. His leather vest, reinforced with Kevlar, kept him from being shredded by the asphalt, but his ribs weren't so lucky. 3 of them snapped on impact. His left leg twisted at an unnatural angle. He lay there on the side of the road, rain pouring down, barely conscious, his bike a mangled wreck 10 feet away. The truck driver, shaken but unhurt, called 911 immediately. Within minutes, sirens wailed in the distance. An ambulance arrived, then another. Paramedics worked quickly, stabilizing Ghost, loading him onto a stretcher. He was in and out of consciousness, his vision blurred, pain radiating through every nerve. "Sir, can you hear me? What's your name?" "Ghost," he mumbled. "Your real name, sir?" "Marcus. Dalton. Is there someone we can call?" Ghost tried to focus. His phone was shattered somewhere on the highway. His vest was torn, but still on him, the iron phantom patch visible. He managed to whisper, "My daughter, Lily. She's at school." The paramedic nodded. "We'll take care of it." They rushed him to Riverside General Hospital, the closest trauma center. By the time he arrived, his blood pressure was dropping dangerously low, internal bleeding. Possible punctured lung. Multiple fractures. The doctors moved fast, wheeling him straight into surgery. In the waiting room, the hospital staff contacted the number listed on his emergency contact card. Within 30 minutes, Lily Dalton burst through the emergency room. Doors, her face pale, her hands shaking. "Where is he?" she demanded, her voice breaking. "Where's my dad?" A nurse guided her to a private waiting area. "He's in surgery. The doctors are doing everything they can." Lily sank into a chair, her head in her hands. She was 16. She'd already lost her mother. The thought of losing her father, she couldn't breathe. She pulled out her phone with trembling fingers and called the only other number she knew by heart. Steele, the president of the Iron Phantoms. "Lily?" Steele's voice was gruff but warm. "What's wrong?" "It's Dad," she choked out. "There was an accident. He's in surgery. I don't know if... Where are you?" "Riverside General. We're on our way." Within an hour, the hospital parking lot filled with a rumble of motorcycles. 18 Iron Phantoms arrived, their engines cutting through the rain like thunder. They parked in formation, dismounted, and walked into that hospital as a unit, leather-clad, solemn, united. The staff tensed, security hovered nearby. But Steele walked straight to the front desk, removed his sunglasses, and spoke with quiet authority. "Marcus Dalton. He's one of ours. We're here for his daughter." The nurse hesitated, then nodded. "Third floor, waiting area." The brothers filled the waiting room. Some sat in silence. Others paced. A few prayed quietly, hands folded, lips moving. They didn't cause trouble, didn't raise their voices. They just waited, as brothers do. Lily sat in the center of it all, surrounded by men who loved her father as much as she did. Steele sat beside her, his massive hand resting gently on her shoulder. "He's tough," Steele said quietly. "Toughest man I know. He'll pull through." Lily nodded, tears streaming down her face. "He has to." Hours passed. Finally, a surgeon emerged, still in his scrubs, exhaustion etched into his face. The room went silent. "Family of Marcus Dalton?" Lily stood, her legs shaking. "I'm his daughter." The surgeon's expression softened. "He made it through surgery. We repaired the internal bleeding and stabilized the fractures. He's in critical but stable condition." Lily exhaled, a sob of relief. Steele stood, extending his hand. "Thank you, doctor." The surgeon shook it. "He's going to need a long recovery. Physical therapy. And..." He hesitated. "The medical bills are going to be substantial. His insurance will cover some, but not all." Steele's jaw tightened. How much are we talking? Conservatively, $80,000 to $100,000 out of pocket. The number hung in the air like a weight. Lily's face went pale. We don't have that kind of money. Steele looked at the brothers. They exchanged glances. No words needed. The decision was already made. We'll figure it out, Steele said firmly. That's what we do. But as Lily sat back down, staring at the floor, the reality of it crashed over her. Her father was alive, but their lives were about to be buried under a mountain of debt they couldn't escape. What none of them knew, what they couldn't possibly have known, was that 3 floors below, a 9-year-old girl with a worn envelope in her hands was about to change everything. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Emma Grace Sullivan had heard about the accident the same way everyone in Riverside had, through whispers at school, through the evening news playing in the common room at Mercy Hills. Bad crash on Highway 52. Biker. In critical condition. Family asking for prayers. Emma had been sitting by the window, half listening, when they showed a photo of the man on the news, Marcus Dalton. Ghost. The name didn't mean anything to her, but his face did. He looked kind. Even in the hospital photo they'd used taken years ago at some charity event, his eyes were warm, gentle, the kind of eyes her grandmother had. Emma had turned to Mrs. Rivera, who was folding laundry nearby. Is he going to be okay? Mrs. Rivera sighed. I hope so, sweetheart. But from what I heard, the medical bills are going to be overwhelming. The family's going to have a hard time. Emma's chest tightened. She thought about Lily, the daughter who must be terrified right now, and about Ghost, lying in a hospital bed, broken but alive. That night, Emma couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sound of the other kids breathing. She thought about the envelope tucked away in her wooden box. $47. Not much in the grand scheme of $100,000, but it was all she had. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her mind. Kindness is the only thing that truly matters. Emma sat up, climbed out of bed, and pulled the wooden box from under her mattress. She opened it carefully, took out the envelope, and held it against her chest. $47 wouldn't fix everything. It wouldn't even make a dent. But maybe, just maybe, it would show this man and his daughter that someone cared, that they weren't alone. The next morning, Emma asked Mrs. Rivera if she could go to the hospital. Mrs. Rivera looked surprised. The hospital? Why, honey? Emma held up the envelope. I want to give this to the biker man, to help with his bills. Mrs. Rivera's expression softened. Emma, that's very sweet, but this is your birthday money. You've been saving it all year. I know, Emma said quietly, but he needs it more than I do. Mrs. Rivera knelt down. Eye level with her. Are you sure about this? Emma nodded. Grandma always said kindness matters most. I think she'd want me to do this. Mrs. Rivera's eyes glistened. Okay, I'll take you. That afternoon, Mrs. Rivera drove Emma to Riverside General Hospital. Emma clutched the envelope the entire way, her heart pounding. What if they said no? What if they thought she was being silly? $47 wasn't much. Maybe they'd laugh at her. But Emma had made up her mind. They walked through the Frosses to Frey's hospital's automatic doors. The lobby was busy, people rushing past, phones ringing, the smell of antiseptic hanging in the air. Emma felt small, invisible again. But she walked to the front desk anyway, stood on her tiptoes, and cleared her throat. The nurse looked down, distracted. Yes? Emma held up the envelope with both hands. This is for the biker man who got hurt. Mr. Dalton. I heard he needs help with his bills, and I want to give him this. It's $47. It's all I have. Please make sure he gets it. The nurse's expression shifted from confusion to disbelief to something softer. She took the envelope gently, opened it, and saw the crumpled bills, the taped quarters, the carefully written note on notebook paper. Dear Mr. Dalton, I hope you feel better soon. I know $47 isn't a lot, but it's all I saved for my birthday. My grandma always said kindness is the most important thing. I hope this helps a little. Love. Emma Grace Sullivan, age 9. The nurse's eyes filled with tears. She looked at Emma, this small, serious child in a too big dress and scuffed shoes, and something inside her broke open. "Sweetheart," the nurse whispered. This is the kindest thing I've ever seen." Emma shifted uncomfortably. "Will you give it to him?" "Yes," the nurse said, her voice thick. "I promise." Emma nodded, satisfied. "Thank you." As Emma turned to leave, the nurse called after her. "Wait, what's your name again?" "Emma Grace Sullivan." The nurse wrote it down carefully. Then she picked up the phone and called the third floor. Steele was standing outside Ghost's ICU room when his phone buzzed. It was the front desk. "Mr. Steele, there's something you need to see. Can you come down to the lobby?" Steele frowned. "I'm with Ghost. Can it wait?" "No, sir. I really think you need to see this." 10 minutes later, Steele stood at the front desk, staring at the worn envelope in the nurse's hands. She explained everything. The little girl. The $47. The note. Steele read it once, then again. His jaw tightened. His hands, rough and scarred from decades of writing and working, trembled slightly as he held the paper. "Where is she?" he asked quietly. "She left about 20 minutes ago." "Find her." The nurse hesitated. "Sir, I'm not sure." "Find her," Steele repeated, his voice firm but not unkind. "I need to know who this kid is. I need to meet her." Within an hour, the nurse had tracked down Mrs. Rivera's contact information. Steele called the children's home. "This is Steele, president of the Iron Phantom Motorcycle Club. One of your kids just did something incredible for my brother. I need to talk to her, to thank her properly." Mrs. Rivera was cautious at First Motorcycle. Clubs didn't exactly have the best reputation, but something in Steele's voice convinced her. He wasn't threatening. He was grateful. "Her name is Emma Grace Sullivan, Mrs. Rivera said. "She's 9 years old. She's been with us for 3 years. She's a very special child." Steele listened as Mrs. Rivera explained Emma's story. The fire, the grandmother, the years in foster care. The quiet, kind girl who never asked for anything but always tried to help. When she finished, Steele was silent for a long moment. Then he said, "We're going to do something for her. Something big." "Mr. Steele, that's not necessary." "Yes, it is," Steele interrupted gently. "In our world, there's a code. When someone shows you kindness, when someone sacrifices for you without asking for anything in return, you don't forget. You don't just say thank you and move on. You repay it in full." He paused. "Tell Emma we're coming to see her. And tell her the Iron Phantoms don't forget." That night, Steele called an emergency church meeting. When the Iron Phantoms gather for church, it means something serious is about to happen. 30 men filled the warehouse, their vests lined against the walls, patches telling stories of loyalty and sacrifice. The air smelled of oil, rain-soaked, leather, and cigarette smoke. Steele stood at the center, Ghost note in his hand. "Brothers," he began, his voice steady. "Most of you know Ghost is going to pull through. He's tough. He'll recover. But what you don't know is why." He held up the envelope. This came from a 9-year-old girl. Emma Grace Sullivan, orphan, lives in a children's home, has nothing, and she gave Ghost every dollar she had to her name. $47. Her birthday money. The room went silent. Steele continued, his voice thick with emotion. "She doesn't know us, doesn't owe us a damn thing. But she heard a man was hurt, and she gave him everything she had. Not because she expected anything back, because she thought it was the right thing to do." He looked around the circle, meeting each man's eyes. "Ghost is my brother, your brother, and this little girl, who the world has forgotten, just reminded us what honor looks like." One of the older members, a grizzled veteran named Ironside, spoke up. "What are we going to do about it?" Steele's expression hardened with resolve. "We're going to show her what happens when you show kindness to the Iron Phantoms. We're going to show her she's not invisible anymore." Another voice. "How much are we talking?" "Everything," Steele said. "We're going to change her life. Completely." The men began talking, voices rising with purpose. I'll put in $1,000. I've got a buddy who owns a toy store. My wife works in children's services. Maybe we can help with adoption." Steele raised his hand. "It's not just about money. It's about showing this kid that kindness doesn't go unnoticed, that the world is watching, that she matters." He leaned forward. "We've got 1 week. I want a plan. I want permits. I want the whole damn city involved. Because when the Iron Phantoms repay a debt, we do it right." And in that warehouse, 30 men rose to their feet. One brotherhood, one mission, one forgotten little girl about to learn that kindness is the most powerful force on Earth. The Iron Phantoms moved with the precision of a military operation. Day 1. Steele contacted the mayor's office, the police department, and local businesses. At first, they were skeptical. A motorcycle club wanting to organize a citywide event for a 9-year-old orphan? It sounded like a publicity stunt. But then Steele showed them Emma's note. He told them her story. The mayor read the note twice, then looked up at Steele with tears in his eyes. "What do you need from us?" "Shut down Main Street on Saturday," Steele said. "We're throwing this kid a parade." Day 2. The word spread through the Brotherhood's network. Chapters from 3 states heard Emma's story. By nightfall, over 50 motorcycle clubs had pledged to show up. Not for glory, not for recognition. For Emma. Day 3. Local businesses started donating. The toy store offered to fill a truck with gifts. The furniture store volunteered a bedroom set. A local contractor offered to build Emma a custom playhouse. Day 4. The Iron Phantoms pooled their resources. Every member contributed what they could. Some gave $50. Some gave $500. One brother, who'd just gotten a bonus from his job, gave $2,000. By the end of the day, they'd raised $37,000. But Steele wasn't satisfied. "It's not enough," he said. "What do you mean?" asked Mountain, the club's enforcer. "That's more than most people make in a year." "It's not about the money," Steele replied. "It's about showing this kid she has a future. A real future." Day 5. Steele made a phone call to an old friend, a lawyer who specialized in family law. "I need your help. We've got a little girl who deserves a family. Can you navigate the system? For you?" "Absolutely." The lawyer started working with Mrs. Rivera and the state to fast-track Emma's adoption process. Multiple families had already expressed interest after hearing her story. Day 6. The parade route was finalized. Over 500 motorcycles would ride through downtown. Riverside, all for Emma. Banners were printed. News crews were scheduled. The whole city was buzzing. But Emma? She had no idea. Day 7. Saturday morning. The Iron Phantoms gathered at dawn. Steele stood before them, his voice powerful. "Today, we show the world what brotherhood means. Not violence. Not intimidation. Loyalty. Honor. Compassion. Let's ride." Emma Grace Sullivan woke up Saturday morning to Mrs. Rivera gently shaking her shoulder. "Emma, sweetie, you need to get dressed. We're going somewhere special." Emma blinked sleepily. "Where?" "It's a surprise." Mrs. Rivera helped her into the nicest dress. They had a soft blue one donated by a local church. She braided Emma's hair carefully, fixing the crooked part. "You look beautiful," Mrs. Rivera said softly. Emma looked at herself in the mirror. She didn't feel beautiful. She felt confused. "Mrs. Rivera, what's happening?" "You'll see." They drove downtown. As they got closer to Main Street, Emma noticed something strange. The streets were blocked off. Police cars everywhere. Crowds of people lining the sidewalks. "Why are all these people here?" Emma asked. Mrs. Rivera smiled. "You'll see." They parked near the courthouse. Mrs. Rivera led Emma toward the center of the plaza, where a small stage had been set up. And then Emma heard it, that deep, thunderous rumble, the sound of hundreds, no, thousands of motorcycles. Emma's eyes went wide. "What?" The first wave of bikes appeared around the corner, chrome glinting in the sunlight. American flags snapping in the wind. Riders in formation, moving as one. More bikes, more and more. Emma stood frozen, her small hand gripping Mrs. Rivera's tightly. "I don't understand." Emma whispered. The lead bike pulled to a stop in front of the stage. A large man with a silver beard dismounted. Steele. He walked toward Emma, knelt down so he was eye level with her, and spoke gently. Emma Grace Sullivan? Emma nodded, too stunned to speak. My name is Steele. I'm the president of the Iron Phantom Motorcycle Club. One of my brothers, Marcus Dalton, the man you gave your birthday money to, he's going to be okay because of you. Tears filled Emma's eyes. Really? Really? Steele said, his voice thick. And we wanted to do something to thank you, to show you that kindness never goes unnoticed. He stood and gestured to the crowd. All of these people, every single one, they're here for you. Emma's mouth fell open. Banners hung across the street. Thank you, Emma Grace. Heroes come in all sizes. Kindness changes everything. Steele led her to the stage. She climbed the steps, her legs shaking. In front of her, an ocean of motorcycles. 500 riders, thousands of people, all of them looking at her. Steele took the microphone. Emma gave away every dollar she had to help a stranger. $47. Her birthday money. The only money she'd saved all year. And she did it because she believed kindness mattered more than anything else. His voice broke. This little girl reminded us what honor looks like. The crowd erupted in applause. Steele turned to Emma. We've got some things for you. One by one, members of the club brought gifts to the stage. A brand new winter coat, books. So many books. A bicycle with a bright purple ribbon. A custom leather vest, child-sized, with an honorary patch, Emma Grace Heart of the Phantoms. Emma's hands covered her mouth, tears streaming down her face. But Steele wasn't finished. We've also set up a trust fund. $50,000. For your education. For your future. Emma sobbed. And Emma, Steele said gently, there are 3 families here today who want to meet you. Families who heard your story and want to give you a forever home. Emma collapsed into Steele's arms, weeping. The crowd roared. Engines revved. People cheered and cried, and at the back of the crowd, in a wheelchair pushed by his daughter Lily, sat Ghost, weak, bandaged, but alive. He raised his fist in the air. The Brotherhood answered with a deafening roar of engines. Emma Grace Sullivan, once invisible, once forgotten, was finally seen. 6 months later, Emma Grace Sullivan stood in the front yard of her new home, laughing as her new little brother chased her with a water balloon. She'd been adopted by the Henderson family, a couple in their 40s with 2 biological children who'd opened their hearts to a 9-year-old girl who just needed a chance. Her room was painted purple. Her shelves overflowed with books. Her closet had more clothes than she'd ever owned in her life. But the best part? Every Sunday, the Hendersons took Emma to visit Ghost. He'd recovered fully, still rode his Harley, still led the Iron Phantoms with quiet strength. And every time Emma visited, he'd hug her tightly and whisper, "You saved my life, kid." I'll never forget it. Emma's trust fund had grown. The community kept donating. By the time she turned 18, there would be enough for college, trade school, whatever she wanted. The Iron Phantoms had created the Emma Grace Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to helping children in foster care. And Emma? She volunteered every weekend, reading to younger kids at Mercy Hills, just like her grandmother had read to her. She'd learned something her grandmother had tried to teach her all along. Kindness is never wasted. Even $47 can change the world. If this story moved you, subscribe, comment, kindness matters. Share this with someone who needs to believe in goodness again. Because the world needs more Emmas. And the world needs to see them. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.